Ähm, Tut mir leid, irgendwas hat also gesponnen. Man müsste mich jetzt allerdings hören, wieder. Hallo? Ich höre gar nichts. Jetzt müsste man mich hören. Hm? Wieso hört man mich nicht? Ich bin auch auf Start Streaming, oder? Ja, eben. Ach so, ich bin noch offline. Ah, ja gut, deswegen hört man mich nicht. Also ich war bei mir offline. Musste ich ihn aktualisieren. Der Twitch Play ist eigentlich ganz nice. Ach so, ich bin noch offline. Ah, sehr schön. Ich höre mich. Jetzt testen wir das gleich nochmal hier. Also man müsste etwas dieses Klicken im Hintergrund hören, wenn ich über die Dinger gehe, und man müsste Feuer hören. Ah, sehr schön. Ich höre mich. Jetzt testen wir das gleich nochmal hier. Also man müsste etwas dieses Klicken im Hintergrund hören, wenn ich... Jo, das passt ja schon. Optionen, schauen wir erstmal Sound. Okay. Ich habe jetzt erstmal hochgestellt. Okay, das ist ein Fail. Es ist etwas kalt hier im Zimmer. Oder nee, das Fenster offen, sonst kriege ich wieder Kopfschmerzen. Na gut, ich bin etwas krank, mein Whistle wird zu. Tasten, Schaltflächen bearbeiten. Y-Achse, Mausempfindlichkeit. Ich will die Mausempfindlichkeit hoch tun. Ich bin so einer, der lieber nach links wiege, rechts Space drücken. Iterieren. Okay, der hat mit hoher Mausempfindlichkeit gespielt. Starten wir das Spiel. Ich weiß nicht, was mich erwartet. Bitte Audio einschalten. Audio ist ein. Steuerung, WSD.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011.
Is this even a game?
We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way.
Ich muss nur kurz mein OBS anblenden. So.
And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all
Ich würde sagen,
I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
Okay.
So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com.
Wow, so an email.
Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Okay, ich glaube, das ist kein Spiel, kann das sein? Ich meine, ist das ein Spiel? Ich meine, zu dem Zeitpunkt, wo wir jetzt sind, ist es so, dass es eine Ermutigung für seinen Freund ist, weiter Spiele zu machen. Wir werden wahrscheinlich irgendwelche depressing Sachen sehen. Was?
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
Okay, wir kommen nicht sprinten. Ich habe keine Munition mehr, nice.
Security call reached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
Okay.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin ship evacuation.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Nice. Wie hat sie die Spiele bekommen? Oh Gott,
Apparently the space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Lol. Ich würde sagen, irgendwelche Achievements, nein.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Mhm.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. You can disrupt it, but it can get a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Wow. Okay. Das war unerwartet. Das war echt unerwartet. Also wir müssen uns opfern. Es wird wohl hier sehr ethikbasierend.
This is not a branching point, unfortunately. The only option is to step into the beam. Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Lol, was? Nice. Und da ist der Wunders-Universe.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Wir haben jetzt 2008. Aber das ist interessant, die Vergangenheit lag hinter ihr.
Yep, in this game you can only walk backwards.
What? Wow. Oh, was?
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
Why? Oh, das mit dem Rückwärtsgehen ist immer mies, da weiß ich nichts. Aber wenn die Zukunft immer hinter ihr liegt. Wird sie dann die Kraft finden, sich zu stellen?
It's a short little thought,
Oh,
it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Okay. Oh nein, Slender. Wahrscheinlich geht's mit den Hand nicht hinaus, oder? Doch. Oder kann man nur in diesen Weg gehen? Du Kritzeln. Sind das echte Spiele oder wird es nur so aller narrativ?
And that's it.
Was?
Okay, the meaning of this game
narrativ
won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Okay.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Das Spiel ist deutsch, lol.
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
Ich frage mich, wie lange für dieses Spiel gebraucht hat. Ja.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Nö. Ich schaff's auch so, ich halte es durch. What?
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games. Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
Ich wollte es noch lesen, das war so interessant. Auf die Fische fertig los. Aber das war irgendwie... Ja, bin ich gerade an AC Dings.
Well, this is new for Coda.
Revelations.
It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it. Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're going to see it a lot.
Du musst Türen schließen, um Türen aufzumachen. I see that meaning.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Ich bin gespannt. Was könnte auftauchen? Oh, was?
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior, and then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Hey. Schon wieder dieses Spiel. Du verlässt uns.
So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Okay, das ist interessant. Oben gedrückt ist noch keiner. Wetten, die machen das irgendwie über 2 Stunden, dass man es nicht mehr zurückgeben kann.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms. It's just because he's working with what the engine does well.
Was?
The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
What? Ich kann nicht runter. Das habe ich nicht erwartet. verkackt, aber die Engine. Oh, ich kann mir gar nicht rein. Das ist aber... Was ist das? Was?
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that. This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
War halt Metal Gear Solid 5 Graphic Simulator. Ui.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Man denkt, man könnte rausspringen.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Was? Ich glaube, ich werde sehr lange still sein.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Kommen wir auch weiter runter? Ja. Ist das eine Stadt? Ja.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Oh, es wird dunkel. April 2009. Das Spiel ist mit dem Internet, was? Hallo, kannst du Notizen hinterlassen? Hinterlassen. Okay. Really? Netter Raum, von wegen.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually.
Wow. So viele.
Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played. But it's ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Das sind wahrscheinlich alles nur Marker, also die gar nicht Notizen haben. In den Popo-Arsch, ey. Kostenloses T-Shirt. Mach ein Spiel mit dem Tür nicht auf. Danke auch. Sehr schön. Und Twitch hat mein Spiel rausgeschmissen, weil es noch nicht gibt. Der Benningers Guide ist noch nicht auf Steam registriert, auf Twitch registriert und deswegen sehe ich nicht mehr nur. Ach, hier bin ich hierher gekommen. Gibt's hier noch einen Weg? Ja. Ethisch. Jetzt höre ich Flüstern. Ist das die Flüstermaschine? Hm. Level neu starten, abbrechen und zum Menü. Interessant. Ich überlege gerade, ich weiß nicht, ob das so ein Stream-Game ist. Wir sind jetzt eine halbe Stunde drin, aber ich weiß echt nicht, ob das so ein gutes Stream-Game ist. Ich meine, es ist, ich erzähle fast nichts. Es ist eher poetisch gedacht. Ich glaube, ich spiele es eher für mich selber. Ich habe das Spiel geschafft. Noch die Notiz zu Ende.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Koda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one. In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Koda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution. he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
Das bisschen wird lauter. Nee, jetzt wahrscheinlich gehe nicht durch die Tür.
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Ich frage mich, was die Leute machen, die das Rätsel nicht lösen. LOL. Hey, eine Stimme hat's geschafft. Oh, was? Wo schreibt man diese Notizen da? Oder was? Sprich. Wow, was? Wann ist das Lied nicht ewig?
Okay,
Was?
this one is tough. It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Okay, das will ich noch wissen. Oh, was?
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Tisch. Oh, was?
There's a bit more to this one, but still, it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So, okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Und drehen leicht nach rechts. Weiß ich das Ganze noch? Wahrscheinlich, was ist denn
Of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape.
Yep.
Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside.
Oh, was?
Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Hier lang. Und eine Telefonzelle. Cooler wär's.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone.
Cooler wär's, wenn man das Gespräch vorne noch schon
The
geführt
irony is
hätte.
that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Das ist von einem einfachen Counter-Strike-Level, sowas kommt echt. Und beenden. Leute, ich muss gescholzen.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
scheiß drauf, mich fasziniert und packt dieses Spiel aus irgendeinem unerfindlichen Grund. Ich stream das jetzt einfach mal durch. Ich hab echt Schnupfen.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the 2 doors on either side and a dark transitional space between. You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
Das erinnert mich irgendwie an Life is Strange. Ich würde eher die Bücher sortieren, die lausen mich. Ganz persönlichen Käse, okay? Nein. Das tut mir leid, egal. Wieso ist es teilweise Deutsch und teilweise Englisch und das ist ein Bug, oder? Ja. Beziehungsweise ist so, ja. Das kann ja kein Bug sein, weil, you know.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was, like, grossly happy all the time. Just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Ach so, das ist meine Aufforderung. Ja. Hey Schmatzi. Das ist das neue Game von den Stanley Parable-Machern. Nur dass es kein Game ist, es ist eine Erfahrung. Es gibt gerade ziemlich viele Spiele, die Erfahrungen sind. Hört mir auf. Life is Strange. Dieses hier und so weiter. Ja, hier zeigt uns,
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace.
hier zeigt uns der Entwickler von The Stanley Parable die Werke seines Freundes. Sein Freund hat viele Spiele gemacht, welche anscheinend keinen Sinn haben, aber auch irgendwie einen Sinn haben. Und ja, er will uns hiermit zeigen, wie es im Kopf von seinem Freund aussieht. Und dieser Freund macht keine Videospiele mehr, also keine Spiele. Und die Spiel ist auch dazu da, um ihn zu ermutigen, neue zu machen. Und wir sind ein Teil davon, also wir sollten ihn ermutigen. Frage.
But, of course, it can't last. The
What?
music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Oh, das war so schlimm. Ich mochte das dort. Nein. Die Musik war schön, hat mich in Life is Strange erinnert und so weiter. Mann. Aber es gab noch keinen so What the fuck Effekt und die Straßenlaterne ist wieder da. Die kommt
Which
am
is the
Ende
whole
jedes
point of the
Level.
puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
But it was not. Was? Alles, was sie lieben, zum
This one
Vorzugspreis.
gets a bit goofy.
Spiele, die sowas so aussehen, sind grausam. Grausam. Perfekten werden möchtest. Na gut, teilweise Englisch, teilweise Deutsch. Immer wir switchen die Place, also die Sitze, oder? Lara. Aber was? Wir sind is. Was ist eine Grace?
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
Oh.
And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, what the fuck? Und jetzt.
I felt pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the
What the
little
fuck?
flaws that make them painfully human.
Schmerz,
I
ich
think about
brauche
this game a lot.
Support. Geistlichen Support. Oh, scheiße.
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Die Grafik sieht aber ganz gut aus. Gleich gehen die Scheinwerfer an. Oh Gott, ich hab mich trotzdem erschreckt. Oh, Scheiße. Was? Tierfotografin, okay. Die Filme, die gerade zu sehen, bevor das vom Spiel oder was gerade rausgekommen oder so. Weise, glücklich, konzentriert, erfolgreich. Ich check noch nichts. Hör auf, runter und beginne ein Gespräch mit dieser Person. Nochmal von vorn. Ich check noch nichts, gar nicht. Ich check, also es ist aus dem Geiste. Ich weiß es nicht. Also, es ist. Und nicht irgendein Nostalgia-Man. Oh, das kenne ich aus dem Trailer. Warte, ja. Hier und jetzt. Ich weiß, dass es eine Endlosschleife hier gibt. Es ist ja auch kein Spiel, es ist ein Mehrerspiel, es ist eine Erfahrung. Es geht halt um Koda, das ist ein Freund vom Entwickler von The Stand Parable. Und der hat halt viele dieser Spiele gemacht und ja. Sprich jetzt wieder eher. Du vergankst es wieder total. Lass mich mal was probieren. Geh ein Stück zurück von der Bühne. Aber nein, ich mochte die Wobbeldinger. Die Straßenlaterne. Ich finde, es ist verschnupft, also es tut mir leid. Die Straßenlaterne. Was? Hört man auch den Sound eigentlich gut, der mir die Erfahrung fickt mein Head hart. Ich weiß noch was anderes, was dich fickt.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Koda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Koda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Koda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of
Jetzt wird's gruselig.
himself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his game. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with his person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Okay. Möbiusflug. Und die solltest du die klicken Augen schließen. Okay. Ich mache es jetzt wirklich. Ich schließe meine Augen. Schmarz, sag mir bitte danach, was da war, okay? Oh Gott, kann ich so lange die Augen geschlossen halten? Das ist unnatürlich. Was soll ich tun? Was ich jetzt tun soll? Vielleicht Chat? Was?
You
Irgendetwas
should
hat
probably open
gecrashed.
your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise.
Okay, ich mach
And
die
there
Augen
is a
auf.
solution, by the way.
Wow, was? Dann wurde mir schwarz vor Augen. Du kannst auch... Wow, was? Wow, 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 what? Hilfe, ich kann nichts mehr sehen. Weil ich bin jetzt immer eine andere Person, was? Was ist hier los? Ui. Wahrheit. Nein, es ist nicht wahr. Wow. Das ist deep. Hey, man sieht den Boden nicht mehr.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So, where's that coming from? But then, even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
Übrigens kein Comment auf meinen Witz von vorhin wegen deinem letzten Satz, mit dem Hirn und so. Oh Menno, ich hab mich so bemüht. Wenn du ein Stück daran wirst. Ist alles wieder gut und hier, wir schaffen das.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Frag, ob mir wirklich jemand auf die Daten geachtet hat. Was? Was? Immer wenn man eine Antwort klickt, dann verzerrt sich kurz die Musik. Musik. Was ist los? Die Whisper-Maschine. Level 1. Ja, immer wenn was Neues auftaucht, dann verzerrt sich das Ding so. Suchst deine Maschine, ich glaube, ich weiß, wo einer ist. Nicht weit von hier. ist. Ich weiß, warum sie aufgehört haben. Nein.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
Deal. Aber ich was anderes gedrückt habe. Perfekt. Und jetzt spielt zu Ende, wetten?
Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
Hervorragend. Jetzt gibt's nichts wetten? Nee, doch. Jetzt machen wir etwas Falsches. Da geht diese Tür auf.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Mein Stream spackt wieder, ich hasse es. Vielleicht lieber den besseren PC wieder so. So werden wir. Müssen wir mal antworten. Ich habe, wo bin ich gefragt? Weint deine Frau? Ja. Da fehlt ein Tee. Wow.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like video games are not worth this amount of suffering.
Das sind die Antworten aus vorigen Dings.
This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me.
Hier kommen jetzt Dinge, die ich nicht gesagt habe, teilweise.
This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything
Ich
for
hab mal
this
grad echt
to
flach.
stop.
Es ist intens. Das Gefängnis und die Lampe wieder. Das ist eine Frau. Im Gefängnis. Oh, das fickt mich so hart, ey. Nein, nein, nein. Oh, Gänsehaut. Lass es aufhören, bitte. Die Lampe.
But it didn't stop.
Was? Nein.
After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
Weit plus 11. Wir haben jetzt nur noch circa maximal 8 Spiele oder so. Wenigstens hat der Schluchzen aufgehört. Sag mal, Schwarz, bist du noch da? Schön, dich zu sehen. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Die Maschine nennt sich Koma. Koma, jetzt, Koda, aber jetzt wird's noch depressing. Jetzt wird's noch mehr depressing. Giftige Spiele. Die Maschine ist obviously da hinten. Sie kriegen keine Antworten. Nein, keine Antworten. Haben Sie einen Moment Zeit? Nein. Gnädige Frau. Ich frage nur, weil das ist irgendwie meh, wenn ich weiß, ob eine Person noch da ist oder nicht. Verstehst du? Man fühlt sich als Streamer einfach irgendwie besser, wenn man mindestens eine Person da hat.
And of course, it's the machine.
Was ist das? Ich gehe mal wie in einem Verhör herum. Vibriert es oder denkt ihr das nur? Wir hören nicht alles, leider. Lol, Texturenfail. Nein, nichts. Dieses Game fickt mich so hart, ich will mit Solid 5 spielen. Ne? Folgt. Oh Gott, nein! Ich bin wieder sorry. Nein, ich will die Maschine zerstören. Nein, 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 nein. Fancy Pets. Aus dem ersten Teil. Also aus dem ersten Spiel. Oh nein.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
Zum Anschauen ist es ganz komisch, irgendwie löst das Gefühle aus. Meinst du das Spiel oder? Ja, das ist. Du hast noch nicht den Anfang gesehen. Sein erstes Level war. Wow, wir sind durchgefahren.
So I started showing Coda's work to people.
War ein Counter-Strike-Level
and
jetzt.
the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
Oh, schon. Put down your weapon. Dieser bedrückende Bass. Krank. Einfach nur krank.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy.
Was? But then.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
Oh Gott, das ist schlimm. Übrigens, ihr findest den neuen Player. Vor 2011, vor 4 Jahren. Der Turm. Okay, Design wie damals.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
Indeed, indeed.
this room actually has a maze in it.
What?
Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Oh, das ist schlimm. Nun habe ich etwas zu weit. Ich will es nur kurz versuchen. Ich werde es nicht schaffen, aber... Nein. Ah. Moll. Die schluchzende Frau ist wieder da, bemerke ich gerade. Also erstmal, es sieht aus wie ein Dalek irgendwie, keine Ahnung. Und zweitens ist das wieder die Straßenlaterne? Ist das die Straßenlaterne?
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze?
Oh, ich kann nicht mal... Also das Hausputzspiel hatte einen Sinn. Aber das Labyrinth... Man weiß ein wenig, wo... Also das könnte das Leben repräsentieren. Man weiß nicht, wie lange man geht und alles wird bestraft, wenn man es falsch tut.
The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6th
Was?
code. Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
Eins, 5, 1, 6. Ah Gott. 1 und 7. Verdammt, ich habe einmal zu viel geklickt. Was? Wow.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges, and you got to this point,
Wow.
there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, you know, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem.
Okay.
I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that. Was I a failure for not understanding this game? I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why.
Da komme ich her. Nee, warte, hä? Quatsch, hä? Ist das wieder ein Endless-Loop, oder? Nee, hier
I
war...
remember, it's June of
Wow.
2011. I'm playing this for the very first time. And as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew, it wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean.
Die 3 Punkte?
And he wouldn't.
Welche 3 Punkte? Hä, welche 3 Punkte? Was? Wir haben noch keine Punkte gesehen. Oder? Ich hoffe, Twitch gibt mir keinen Strike, weil ich hier gar kein Spiel angegeben habe. Das gibt es einfach noch nicht. Ich könnte jetzt Stanley Parable reinschreiben, aber das wäre das falsche Spiel. Oder warte, ich ändere mal kurz das Fix. Arbeiten. Beginners Guide. Heute. Okay, ich habe nur kurz auf Twitch den Titel aktualisiert, vielleicht um zu präventieren und so. Und wow, um das zu programmieren, dafür hat nur noch ein paar Wochen gebraucht. Und für andere Spiele Monate? Hat er sich gar nicht dran gesetzt oder keine Ahnung? Welche? Oh, fuck. Falsch. Falscher Weg. Oder? Ich erinnere mich nicht, hier hochgegangen zu sein. Oder doch? Aber die andere Stelle kannten wir auch schon. Verdammt. Ich bin verloren gegangen.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and
3
for all
dots.
happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left. And it felt somehow like I had failed. Where did I screw up? I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. I poisoned it for you.
Ich weiß nicht, was ich sagen soll. Sobald ich was schreibe, stoppt das Stream. Dann schreib nichts. Tu mir den Gefallen und schreib einfach nichts. Ich will, dass du das Ganze erlebst. Oder hast du vielleicht ein Handy oder so? Da kannst du doch schreiben, oder?
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable.
Was wird das Klick? Also du kannst doch ein Handy nutzen oder so, wo du dann schreiben kannst und auf dem PC schaust du. Du bist mit der Masse auf die Pedale.
And the people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, I felt good about myself. Finally, for a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Also, sind wir die Straßenlaterne? Also, ich meine, nicht wir, sondern er, der Entwickler von The Stand Parable, Davey? Oder hat Davey uns gerade nur gespielt?
And then you stopped. And I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
Geht nicht, doch trotzdem. Dann schreib einfach lieber nichts und genießt, also genießt in Anführungszeichen das Spiel. Aber das Interessante ist ja, man könnte diesen Teil des Spiels gar nicht erreichen, weil eben dieses impossible Rätsel davor wäre.
I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself. That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work.
Ja, eben,
but
das wollte ich
I
gerade sagen.
can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again. Like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete.
Gänsehaut nach der anderen.
Whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading. And all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
Wenn man dieses, so, es fickt einen gerade, dass es echt ist. Das ist ja wirklich eine Nachricht an diesen Spieler. Das ist nicht für uns bestimmt. Das ist für ihn bestimmt. Es ist nicht für uns bestimmt. Das ist kein Spiel für uns. Es ist für ihn und wir sind nur die Botschafter. Oh. Und falls dieser Coder nicht echt sein sollte, dann hasse ich den. Hasse ich Davey, aber das kann doch nicht erfunden worden sein.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease.
Viertel, hey. flackert.
Solution. 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 I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons.
Wow, da ist einfach ein Uhrenwagen dort. Es ist eigentlich 21:04 Uhr.
Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Ich sollte eigentlich was zu Abend essen. Und so. Dunkler Raum, schlechter Raum. Oh, dunkel. Und das war der Epilog, ist das Spiel vorbei? Nein. Was ist das? Sieht aus wie ein blauer Nether.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like.
Okay. Oder was war diese Leuchte? Ihr habt doch das Leuchten damals gesehen, bei diesem großen Ding, wo ich sagte, das sieht aus wie ein Dalek.
What
Was
now?
war das? Und das ist jetzt nicht mal ein Spiel von Dings, oder? Das war ein Spiel von... Also, das ist nicht mehr Coda, sondern wirklich Davy jetzt. Und das ist hier nur noch eine Botschaft.
And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. And so I'm just gonna...
Einmal geht's einfach.
Okay.
Mir ist gerade was in den Sinn gekommen. Das könnte theoretisch sein. Er stellt das Ding einfach auf Steam, sagt ja, das soll dann und dann erscheinen und dann begeht er Selbstmord. Ich schwirren gerade so viele Sachen im Kopf herum. Lol. Es bewegt sich nach oben. Dann auf Ali Hops. Keine Musik, doch. Und jetzt sind wir wieder hier. Das war doch das Museum von vorhin. Ich glaube, jetzt streckt er das Spiel einfach nur, damit es über 2 Stunden geht, damit man es nicht zurückgeben kann. 20 Minuten wäre es noch. Wäre es noch gehen. Der Himmel verfärbt sich, kann das sein? Das ist doch die Flüstermaschine vom Anfang des Spiels. Ja, das ist sie. Hier, das erste. Das will richtig sein.
Turn back from this cage.
Gut, aber wo sich sein richtiger Name? Irgendwie tippe ich auf Richard, keine Ahnung wieso.
Let me prove that I'm brave. Let me keep going.
Jesus! Oh mein Gott, Jesus!
The cave goes for miles and miles, and you're so tired, but I know that you're strong.
Port now. Diese Namen.
Turn back. Turn back.
Okay. 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 Ich weiß nicht genau, was ich sagen soll, um ehrlich zu sein. Und ja, ich frage mich gerade immer noch, ist das eine echte Person gewesen? Also Koda und so, oder war das nur eine Story, damit sich es besser verkauft? Guinness, schon in die Foren. 3 Dots. Fragt jemand wegen den 3 Dots, was da auch nie passiert ist. Who is Coda? Ich glaube, das ist eine echte Person. Coda ist Davy. Come to think of it, es macht eigentlich Sinn. Stop planting lampposts in my games. Und kommt mir einfach nicht so steckt schon Content dahinter. Ich meine, also ich bin gerade in Steam Foren, weil ich wollte, keine Ahnung, was wissen, ich weiß nicht mehr, was ich wissen wollte, ich ging einfach dorthin und einige meinen, dass Coda eben eine andere Persönlichkeit von Davy ist. Und stop planting lampposts in my game. 3 possible explanations. Er ist der Verursacher. Er hat einfach einen modifiziert. Oder er ist Davy. Seine andere Persönlichkeit hat das reingetan. 3 deep for me. Nee, 5 me. Gott. Gott, oh Gott. Das fickt mein Gehirn gerade. Viel zu hart. Viel zu hart. Diesen letzten Song, Turn Back oder so, den hole ich mir auf jeden Fall. Ich bin gerade etwas durch. Auf jeden Fall machen wir erstmal eine kurze Pause. Ist mir nicht mehr anders mit dem Gehirn, hab nicht alles gesehen. Ich lade später auf YouTube hoch, da kannst du noch alles sehen, wenn du willst. Da hast du auch die Verbindung, also ja Dings. Also wir machen jetzt erstmal eine Pause. Ich muss etwas essen, noch ein paar andere Sachen machen, die ich eigentlich für eine Stunde legen hätte sollen. Danach kurz Stream an, damit ich die Games gesplittet habe und dann spielen wir wohl wahrscheinlich Metal Gear Solid 5. Wow. Okay, also Pause bis Uhrzeit, sagen wir mal 21:40 Uhr. Wahrscheinlich werde ich schon vorher da sein, ich weiß nicht. Ich schau mal wieder auf YouTube, ob es den Soundtrack überhaupt gibt. das Ding hochgeladen, oder? Doch. Vor 4 Stunden, wow. Okay, wir singen das jetzt gemeinsam. Seid ihr bereit? Back. Turn back from this cave. Gott. You said, let me prove that I'm brave. Me keep going. I'm through miles and miles and miles. You are so tired. I don't know how you so strong. So turn back, turn back. Wow. Ich glaube, ihr braucht was Ermunterndes zum Dingsen als Musik, deswegen, ja, ich brauche etwas Ermunterndes. Bis gleich. Also bis 21:45.
Young すにはまだ惜しいだからさてておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげようやがと奏でるレクイエム感じたよそそり立つほどに美味しそうだね見つけたバカに染まる果実のように色づく君が僕を濡らす血を吐いて息を止めるその時を永遠に甘くさせておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌へ吊るされていそう今宵捧げるエトランで美しく積み上げるほどに愛しくなるね素敵さ滴り落ちるぬるんだ雫握りつぶせばバラに変わる飛び散って冷たくなるその時を永遠に赤くさみておいでこの夢舞台絡まる糸には甘い毒待ってておいで両手広げて競争に染まる気まぐれな夜僕の視線につけまるだけで生きた心地もしないだろう君だけは僕のものさ壊すにはまだ惜しいだからさてておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげよう に落ちるぬるんだ雫握りつぶせばバラに変わる飛び散って冷たくなるその時を永遠に赤くさみたおいでこの夢舞台絡まる糸には甘い毒待ってておいで両手広げて競争に染まる気まぐれな夜僕の視線につかまるだけで生きた心地もしないだろう君だけは僕のものさ壊すにはまだ惜しいだからさてておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげようやごと奏でるレクイエム感じたよそそり立つほどに美味しそうだね見つけたバカに染まる果実のように色づく君が僕を濡らす血を吐いて息を止めるその時を永遠に甘くさせておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌へ吊るされていそう今宵捧げるエントランで美し 僕の視線に捕まるだけで生きた心地もしないだろう。君だけは僕のものさ。壊すにはまだ惜しいだからさて手を入れそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう。待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげよう。やんごと奏でるレクイエム感じたよ。そそり立つほどに美味しそうだな。見つけたバカに染まる果実のように色づく君が僕を濡らす。血を吐いて息を止めるその時を永遠に甘くさせておいで。そのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう。待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌へ吊るされていそう。今宵捧げるエトランで美しく積み上げるほどに愛しくなるな。素敵さ滴り落ちるぬるんだ雫握りつぶせばバラに変わる。飛び散って冷たくなるその時を永遠に赤くさみておいで。この夢舞台絡まる糸には甘い毒。待ってておいで両手広げて競争に染まる気まぐれな夜。僕の視線に捕まるだけで生きた心地もしないだろう。君だけは僕のものさ。壊すにはまだ惜しいだからさて手を入れ
Da, 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 da. Ich bin wieder zurück. Lass mich nur kurz etwas zu Ende machen. Rede. Das dauert jetzt noch etwas länger als geplant. Ach, stimmt ja, ich habe bis 45 fleißig genommen.
この夢舞台絡まる糸には甘い毒待ってておいで両手広げて競争に染まる気まぐれな夜僕の視線に捕まるだけで生きた心地もしないだろう君だけは僕のものさ壊すにはまだ惜しいだからさてておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげようやごと奏でるレクイエム感じたよそそり立つほどに美味しそうだな見つけたバカに染まる果実のように色づく君が僕を濡らす血を吐いて息を止めるその時を永遠に甘くさせておいでそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌へ吊るされていそう今宵捧げるエトランで美しく積み上げるほどに愛しくなるな素敵さ滴り落ちるぬるんだ雫握りつぶせばバラに変わる飛び散って冷たくなるその時を
Spaß. Ich bin zurück. Lass mich nur etwas ganz Kleines machen. Okay? 4 CP bekommt die dann, 2 CP bekommt die dann.
さて手を入れそのしがみから震える瞳をえぐり取ろう待ってておいで両手広げて競争の歌を教えてあげようやがと奏でるレクイエム感じたよそそりだ
とだにだだだだだだだだだだ。So, schließen, sehr schön. Wir gehen zu Games. Vorher will ich aber kurz Stop Streaming machen. Und ich bin gleich zurück, ich ping noch kurz, also keine Angst.